Coronavirus has devastated the global economy and killed more than 270,000 people as it spread exponentially. As conversations shift towards reopening the country and getting people back to work, proper sanitation in high traffic and public spaces will be key to getting back to normal. In places like China, robots and drones are being used to spray disinfectant in public spaces. Airlines and companies like Amazon have been using fogging as a sanitation technique to keep their facilities clean. But there is another option. UV light is an effective disinfectant that has been used for decades in hospitals and operating rooms. The global UV disinfection equipment market was valued at $1.1 billion in 2018 and is projected to reach $3.4 billion by 2026. Ultraviolet light was discovered more than 200 years ago. It was first used for disinfecting surfaces in 1877, for water in 1910, and for air in 1935.
It was discovered because of its antimicrobial, antibacterial properties. And actually in healthcare, it became pretty widely adopted in an effort to try to disinfect the air and ensure that people who were in that environment were not getting exposed to tuberculosis.
UVC light interferes with and destroys the nucleic acids, the DNA or RNA of bacteria, viruses, and other microbes.
And because the microbe can't replicate any longer, it effectively kills it off.
It breaks open the protein shell of a pathogen. So imagine a pathogen, and everybody's seen a cell under a microscope. Imagine it like an egg, and you're cracking an egg. And once you've cracked the egg, you can't put the egg back together. That's what we're doing on a microscopic level.
UV light is a powerful disinfection tool against many viruses, harmful bacteria, mold, and spores. The solution is one of the most effective and safest in sanitizing the COVID-19 coronavirus, as it does not require any contact with the surface or object. But how does UV light eliminate microbes? Specifically, the UVC range, which covers wavelengths ranging from between 200 nanometers and 280 nanometers, is capable of eliminating viruses, bacteria, mold, and spores, including the COVID-19 coronavirus, severe acute respiratory syndrome, Middle East respiratory syndrome, E. coli, yeast, and more. UVC light targets the DNA of the microbe. Exposure to the light causes thymine dimers to form in the DNA. As more thymine dimers are formed, damage starts to accumulate inside the DNA. Bumps also appear in the DNA as a result of the dimers. These cellular mutations negatively affect growth, and the risk of non-repair increases. Eventually, the damage becomes too extensive and the cell dies. DNA replication is stopped, which reduces infection or the spread rate of the virus. When it comes to the latest outbreak of COVID-19, UV light has been confirmed to be effective in eliminating the virus by Juan Leon.
There are 5 different applications of UV, and even though we'll walk through them individually, it might be best to use a combination to properly disinfect your building. Let's start with upper air units. These units emit UV rays above your head. Because the UV is targeted at air in the upper area of rooms, the units can run constantly, even in crowded areas. A second application is UV fixtures for HVAC equipment. Installing UV lamps on HVAC coils or in ducts can disinfect the air circulating in a building. An added bonus, the UV lights also help keep the HVAC system cleaner.
Healthcare facilities strive to maintain a clean environment, but studies show that while surfaces are disinfected on a regular basis, up to 40% of infections are transmitted from contaminated surfaces to patients. However, new evidence suggests that a significant reduction in bacteria can be achieved using a whole room approach with UV irradiation. For hospitals, this could be a major step forward in controlling this problem.
We have taken out the UV lights here. This is strictly for demo purposes. So if this were in a real hospital, everyone would have to leave the room because this uses a narrow UVC light. It's for high efficiency targeting of that DNA. So it disrupts DNA in these bacteria. But luckily the glass this doesn't go through glass. So everyone would leave the room. This is bouncing off surfaces and
So
hopefully killing everything.
Yeah, so it'll go around corners and get under the bed. It pretty much kills all that bacteria in the room. As a patient, too, I'd feel so much safer knowing that the room I'm in was completely sterilized just a few hours before I got
The lighting's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, this is one cool thing about technology. Hopefully, over time, we can decrease this rate of hospital-acquired infections. It's a big deal, and we need to make more progress.
Now, the good thing, if you want to call it good, is that COVID itself happens to be very, very susceptible to UV light. It takes very low doses of UV light to inactivate it. So many devices out there that are certified for almost any organism will also be effective for disinfection of coronaviruses. And the items that are enclosed and have UV light associated with them, I think, can be very effective because those are usually on for a longer amount of time. They'll be giving the correct dose of light to kill off any kinds of viruses or bacteria that might be on the surfaces.
Ultraviolet light can kill microbes in many different environments. It has been used for several decades to disinfect drinking water, wastewater, air, pharmaceutical products, and surfaces against a whole suite of human pathogens. Despite all of its uses, there are a few things that limit its effectiveness. UVC light has been used to combat other coronaviruses such as MERS and SARS, and it was used against Ebola. It's been proven effective and is expected to also work against SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19.
In the hospitals that have used our robots, they're dropping their infection rates 50, 70, even 100%. That's really what we focus on, is how do we reduce the infection rates and make the hospitals a safer place for patients to go.
UV light is efficient as a disinfectant tool, and it just needs electricity to work.
As long as they have the robot and a box of bulbs, they can take energy, electricity, and convert it into disinfection.
It's faster and less labor-intensive than cleaning by hand. It also reduces the need to clean with powerful chemicals. Ultraviolet light could be a powerful tool in the fight against COVID-19, and in some instances it's already being used. China is disinfecting entire buses with UV light, and banks are using UVC on currency. The Pittsburgh International Airport became the first airport in the US to deploy autonomous cleaning robots equipped with ultraviolet lights for disinfection. Daimler has a device designed specifically to disinfect planes called the Germ Falcon. It's the size of a drink cart and has articulating arms that extend over the plane's seats.
We're using ultraviolet C lights like they use in hospitals. You push it up and down the aisle, the wing hovers over the seat back tops, and you can disinfect the whole plane really quickly.
Daimler claims it can kill 99% of germs in 3 minutes, and that it takes 30 to 45 minutes to clean an entire wide-body airplane.
We're primarily focused on viruses like influenza, norovirus, Ebola, and right now we're dealing with coronavirus.
UVD Robots makes the only fully autonomous UVC disinfection robot on the market. After mapping out the environment, it moves around autonomously, guided by LiDAR. The company claims it can kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses in 10 to 15 minutes, and its robots are dispatched in over 50 countries around the world. Far UVC lights could be permanent fixtures in public places like offices and airports to prevent the spread of viruses and other microbes.
The sorts of public spaces we have in mind are hospitals, subways, and trains and planes and buses, restaurants, for example, food stores, anywhere where people are going to be clustered in the same room. The main roadblock at the moment is producing the lamps.
The problem is, how do you scale it up right now to the level where you make it a practical technology?
There are a couple of companies at the moment that are really ramping up to produce large numbers of these lamps. But I think it will be the autumn before the lamps are produced in really large numbers, and the sorts of numbers we're talking about are hundreds of millions.
Costs could be high at first until large-scale manufacturing helps bring it down.
Maybe we'll be in time for the famous bump of the COVID-19 crisis if it really happens, and we'll certainly be in time for the next influenza epidemic next year, and we'll certainly be in time for the next pandemic whenever it should occur.
We've seen a huge amount of interest from places like hotels, from gymnasiums, from schools, from office buildings. People have wanted to disinfect ambulances. We've seen a lot of interest from airports and airlines. And then not to mention old age homes, nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities. COVID has really brought the importance of disinfection home to almost everybody all over the world.